I got a question the other day about the straight axle conversion on this truck, and I realized that I never really made a dedicated video about it. The time and the location of the swap was such that it was not video friendly. It was one of those things where a very generous friend allowed me to work in his shop, and as such I didn't want to waste time, stopping to shoot video and stuff like that. So, for those who don't know, the truck is a 96 K2500, so this would apply to 88 to 98, 92 to 2000, depending on, it's this body style truck. So the goal was not to make the thing super high. Right now it's like a 6-inch lift on 35s basically, so for reference, like that's a 7-foot door and it fits with like 3 inches of room. So at the time, the two companies that I looked at were Off-Road Design and Sky Off-Road Manufacturing. And Sky made a kit that was a 5-inch cross member style front mount, meaning that just the mount alone netted a 5-inch lift. So that would have meant running like a stock square body spring, which are negatively arched, and I didn't want to run negatively arched springs. I wanted them to be as flat as possible. Not a suspension expert, it just seemed like a good idea, so that's what I wanted to do. So Sky was offering a 5-inch, Off-Road Design had a 3, and it also didn't have the cross member, which meant that the spring mounts were a little bit less visible, which was also what I wanted, because I wanted this thing to be as factory appearing as possible and to be able to see as little of the suspension as possible. So the brackets are the Off-Road Design kit. They've got the greasable bolts and the heavy duty bushings and everything like that, front and rear. And for springs, it's a 2.5-inch Skyjacker spring for a square body, and it does have a fitted spring or like an add-a-leaf because of the extra weight of the diesel. So all said and done, it's like a 5.5 to 6-inch lift in the front, and then out back it's just a 5-inch block. With the 6.5 power, there was never any axle wrap trouble. With the Duramax, there will be traction bars, and I might put lift springs in it down the road, but it sits pretty dead nuts level with a hair of rake currently, so I don't really want to mess with that. I did a redhead steering box. It's a factory replacement drop pitman arm, crossover steering. There wasn't room to do high steer because of the low springs and just the way the geometry of everything worked in the front. So it's just a factory tie rod. The axle is an 86 Ford. So 86 means it's still kingpin, it's still high pinion, but it's the wider spring pad. So you can see that the spring perch is like integrated into the meatball. And what's kind of silly is everyone always talks about the 78, 79 axle as being the most desirable because it's kingpin and high pinion, which this axle also is, but it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to get this, because you can get these in like F350 brick nose and bull nose trucks. So it's an 86 axle, re-geared to 373, Yukon ring and pinion in the front. Like I said, crossover steering. And then it's just got like a BDS dual steering stabilizer kit on it in the front. The shock tubes they're either Sky or WFO, I can't remember which, but they're just the weld-on dual shock tubes, and then I'm just running regular BDS gas shocks. So it doesn't ride that good. It rides like a square body because it's essentially square body suspension, but I also didn't build this truck to ride good. It might get linked down the road, probably will, I don't know. I kind of like the fact that it's on leaves. It's just old school, and I think if Chevy had built this truck straight axle from the factory, it would have been on leaves instead of on coils. So that's just the quick summary of the swap. I had, what was it? I replaced basically everything. Like everything was brand new when I did this. I bought the axle, re-geared it, bearing kit, brakes were new, all the joints were new. I don't remember if we did kingpins or not. Steering box was new. And all said and done, I want to say it was like $4,000 to do everything. You can do it for less, but if you're going to do it, just do it right. And consequently, I really haven't had any issues with this setup, and I've put, I don't know, 30,000 miles on it since we did everything. So really no complaints there. But yeah, it was like $3,500 or $4,000 to do the whole thing. We did it in 3 weeks, and that was just kind of working nights, some weekends. We had to wait on some parts. So realistically, you can probably do this swap in 2 weekends if you have some help and you're really busting ass on it. And I wouldn't go back to IFS. Just, maybe if it was like a long haul truck or something like that, I would, I'd want IFS over Springs, but I don't know. So that's it. Hope this answers some questions, and let's get back to the Duramax.